Are we close?
You are currently the only participant in this conference.
So when you start.
Mr. Maher, your line is live.
Well, good evening. Thank you for joining us, either by phone or live stream, for the third of 5 community input sessions regarding establishing new Sioux Falls School District boundaries for the school year that begins 21-22. For those of you who have followed each session, this will be a bit redundant at the beginning, but I do not want to assume that everyone has heard this information prior to tonight, so please bear with me. As you know, we passed a $190 million bond issue in September of 2018. And while that seems just like yesterday to me, here we are getting ready to open buildings. As a result of the Sioux Falls community providing an overwhelming show of support, we now must make sure that we're using the resources that you are providing in a way that best serves our city. For this exercise, that resource is our buildings. So, it's time to begin this process. This certainly is not the way that we had intended to hold the community engagement sessions on this important topic. However, the day we were supposed to hold our first in-person meeting at Memorial Middle School was the day we canceled all non-essential activities in the Sioux Falls School District. The following day, we were encouraged to close schools to prevent the spread of COVID-19, the coronavirus. And as you know, we have been in a remote learning environment ever since. As we thought through the goal, we realized that the point is to hear from the public. And while we would enjoy seeing you in person, your ability to be heard is still our primary goal. And this listening methodology accomplishes that goal. This topic, however, is important to us, and we know it is important to families as well. That is why we are moving ahead with these input sessions. Over the past several months, we've continued to receive community feedback via the Let's Talk application on our website. I know we have received well over 300 pieces of information prior to the beginning of these community engagement sessions. And thanks to you, we've received many, many more since last Monday night. Please keep them coming. We encourage you to continue to use Let's Talk on our website and to provide information using that medium. We'll provide more on that here in a little bit. We're confident that we are still on track to allow the Board of Education to formally adopt new boundaries that will go into effect for the 21-22 school year by the end of June, as we had originally planned. The dates of future meetings are on your screen. We're down to two meetings remaining after tonight. Those meetings are this Thursday at noon and next Monday night at 7 p.m. Our goal was to offer 5 meetings that varied by day of the week and by time to give the greatest number of community members an opportunity to have their voice be heard. We're hoping that the varied meeting times and days were not confusing. Now, a few housekeeping items before we start taking questions. In order to accommodate all questions and callers, we ask that you only call in to ask your question once during the course of our 5 meetings. We want to give everyone a chance to be heard. You're welcome to listen to all of the meetings, of course, but please, one call per person so we can cover the largest number of topics during our 5 meetings. Make your questions or comments succinct, and I know sometimes that can be tough. Monday night, last Monday, and Saturday morning, you did really well on this topic. In order to get to as many questions as possible, we're hoping to keep each question and answer to a total of 3 minutes. Obviously, that would allow us to reach up to 20 people per hour. If someone has already asked your question or made the same point you hoped to make, please remove yourself from the call queue so we can move on to another topic. As mentioned earlier, throughout this process, we've had the Let's Talk tool available on our website. Submitting questions and comments via Let's Talk equates to the same level of input as calling in. The school board will receive all of those comments, just as they will hear all of the comments that you make tonight. If you are not aware of the Let's Talk tool, you can find it on the district website. That address is sf, as in Sioux Falls, sf.k12.sd.us. There is a blue flag on the right side of the screen. Simply click the vertical flag, select your topic, and write your question or comment. You'll know we received it because you will receive a follow-up email. And finally, please keep your comments professional. I can assure you that no one intends to create a hardship for your family. Our primary goal is to assign students to schools in a manner that maintains focus on the priorities previously set by our Board of Education. Priorities such as student safety, financial considerations, using natural boundaries when possible, and keeping contiguous neighborhoods together whenever possible. The number to call is on your screen. It is 1-800-874-4559. Participants will be asked for a code. The code is Ben Schumacher. You will answer a series of questions like your first and last name, where your children attend school, and etc. The operator will place you on hold so you can listen to other callers and then let you know when it is your turn to ask your question. Finally, we are showing 2 options for both the middle school and the high school to look at and ask for your feedback. We've considered other options, and I think that's important for you to know and to realize. We've also looked at other options and configurations in addition to the options that we have on our website. Also, we will continue to look for the best option available. The options that you see are not a final product. I truly believe that what you see as our current options will be massaged before the final process is complete. These are your schools, and we want to hear from you on how best to put the boundaries together. Now, before we kick off with the questions tonight, I want to summarize a few topics from our first 2 meetings that might help with the questions that currently exist and might help us get to other topics in this meeting. One of the topics that we've discussed is the grandfathering of students. Will students currently attending a school be able to continue at that school? That's the question. The answer? The decision to grandfather students has yet to be determined. Our task force gave information on this topic, and we had a student advisory group that provided feedback for our Board of Education on this topic. There was not a unanimous opinion for the board to consider, but our board will ultimately decide this answer. It is more likely for a senior to be grandfathered than it will be for a freshman to be grandfathered. But there are no guarantees of grandfathering that exist today. Open enrollment, will it continue? We will have open enrollment in the future. Open enrollment is predicated on the amount of room that a building has. The Board of Education sets limits on building capacity, and if a building is under capacity, we will allow open enrollment. You will see open enrollment in the Sioux Falls School District after we open the new buildings. Splitting of schools. Will any of our schools be split as they transition from one level to another? The answer, unfortunately, is yes. We've looked to minimize the splitting of buildings as they transition, as students transition from elementary to middle school and as students transition from middle school to high school. But just as does happen today, we will continue to have a few schools that will transition into different directions during that elementary to middle school and middle school to high school transition. Drive times and safe paths to schools. Are you looking at those when considering the boundaries? The answer? Safe paths to schools are crucial in our planning. The school district currently sits on a path committee where we communicate with city officials on creating and maintaining safe paths to schools. We will maintain our seat on that committee and stay steadfast in providing safe routes to schools. As we work to plan our new schools and look at new routes, please know that we currently have students driving across town in many instances due to the current boundary configurations. We will look at the safety from a whole district perspective, both walking and driving. And we will look at those at times, the whole district perspective can get lost when we begin to look at a micro picture of the district and forget that we have to consider all students and all routes to all buildings. The next question. I've heard about programming. Will we decide programming in these meetings? The answer. You may have heard about the conversations in our first two meetings regarding the Spanish Immersion program and our honors program. Those two programs currently coexist at Edison Middle School, and there has been discussion on continuing to keep those programs together, and there has been conversation and discussion to the contrary in our previous meetings. The whole concept of programming is larger than simply the Spanish Immersion issue or the honors program. I'll give you some examples. We have English language learner programs. We have very specific and several special education programs. We have the Challenge Center. Hopefully you get the idea here that I'm trying to make, and that is that we have many programs that will impact the capacity of the building where those programs are located. That issue is a highly technical issue, and the one that won't be finalized in these community meetings. The technical aspect of them really prevents a robust community conversation. So we'll try to keep our conversations here and in the community engagement meetings on a larger level. But please know we've heard each of the topics discussed so far on the Spanish Immersion program and on the honors program, and the pros of keeping those programs together and keeping them at Edison, and the cons of keeping them together. Finally, I want to remind folks that the necessity of the bond issue was centered in the overcrowding of our schools. That was never more apparent than when looking at our West Side schools. The two largest elementary schools in the entire state of South Dakota are located on the west side of Sioux Falls. They are Discovery Elementary and Pettigrew Elementary. Both schools hover around a population of 1,000 students. The largest middle school in the state of South Dakota is Memorial Middle School, also a West Side school. In fact, if Memorial Middle School were a high school, it would be the 6th largest school in the state of South Dakota. It would be 6th and only behind Roosevelt, Lincoln, Washington, Rapid City Stevens, and Rapid City Central. No other high school in our entire state is as large as Memorial Middle School. And those two elementary schools and that one middle school feed into the largest high school in the state of South Dakota. That is Roosevelt High School. Roosevelt is the largest high school in our state by several hundred students, not just by a little bit. The point here is we have a population problem to solve, a great problem, but nonetheless a problem to solve. And I know it gets complicated, but we must move some of the students out of those West Side schools and into other options to help alleviate the overcrowding that currently exists in our schools, particularly the schools on the West Side. So that's it. That's my 15-minute lead-in, and we are ready to go. So I know that took a while. Let's hear from you, and let's get started.
If you have any questions on the line, you need to press star 1 on your telephone keypad. If your question is asked or you don't need to ask anymore, press the pound key to take you out the queue. Again, that is star 1 on your telephone keypad. Thank you.
While we're waiting for calls, I just want you to know we're scheduled to go for an hour tonight. We will go at least 30 minutes tonight, which means I hope we get some calls. Otherwise, I have some song and dance to do.
We do have a question or comment from Nigel Smith.
Hello?
Yes.
Hi. I am a parent of 2 children, soon to be 3, at Sonia Sotomayor. So I know we're going back to the Spanish Immersion and Honors program, and I do apologize if it sounds repetitious, but it is something that really concerns me, knowing that the Spanish Immersion program has such a high concentration of children that are in the Yulee program, my son included. And, you know, I would not be opposed to moving him and then my other children to another school for middle school if those programs were together. I think it's just such a loss for so many parents that are very invested in the Spanish Immersion program and then also have children that are in the honors program as well. And to add to that, don't you think that it would weaken the Spanish Immersion program because students and families will have to choose between the two?
Rather than answer your question, I'll provide this for you. Number one, I think our district has shown a commitment to multiple pathways for students. 2 of those pathways are our Spanish Immersion program and our honors program. Both of those programs individually are flourishing, and thank goodness they are. I think what a testament to the district, and I didn't start those, so I'm not patting myself on the back. What a testament to our district for offering those. What a testament to the students and the families who are using those to the best of your family's ability. So I think those are good things. Those 2 programs have really grown together at Edison Middle School, and I know that we wouldn't tear them apart lightly. You mentioned that you would that you might not be opposed to having those programs offered at a middle school other than Edison. I can tell you without trying to make anybody nervous that I think we're looking at all options. How does it look to keep those together? Does that happen at Edison or does that happen somewhere else? And I don't know the answer to that. I'm not trying to be coy, but I think you bring up really good points on it doesn't have to be at Edison. But I think your point is keep them together. We really think it would be best if we keep them together. And I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. That's what I think I'm hearing you say.
Absolutely. I think that if they stay together, it will alleviate a lot of the worries of these parents.
Certainly, we've had other callers that have said that same thing. Are you still with us? Do you have any more comments?
Oh, I went on to the next one.
That's okay. Thank you for that call.
Sorry about that. For Lynette Ullman.
Hi, my name is Lynette, and I'm a parent of 3 kids in the school district. And I'm for option A. I kind of looked at option A and option B. I am in the pocket of Oscar Howe, so I'm within walking distance of 1.6 miles. But if I look at option B, it's 5.2 miles. And my concern is that, like, when kids do activities in the morning where they can walk to school, like chess club, and I'm afraid that those options would be taken away if we have to go to a school further away, that they can no longer walk.
That's a good point.
Okay, so that's my one comment there. That concerns me. And then just looking at the map, I also noted that there's a pocket off 26th Street, and my concern is that based on the options that are presented, that those children would have to take public transit. And the closest public transit is I think it's probably close to 1.6 miles away to get onto a public transit bus to then take that to Jefferson. And, last summer I was at a PMI conference, and Paul Higgins was talking about the number of people that have used public transit in Sioux Falls. And very few people in the classroom raised their hand. So I just find it concerning that if most people that are residents of Sioux Falls haven't used the public transit, I wouldn't honestly want to put my own child on public transit to get to school.
Yeah. Are you thinking that when your children would get to be high school age that they would need to take public transit?
Right. I wouldn't want that. And for myself, no.
Understand. We have relatively few. We do have some students today who use public transit, but we have relatively few students who do exercise public transit to get to school.
And those were my two comments, so thank you.
Thank you, Lynette. One of the things that she talked about, I think, that we all need to consider is so many times we think about our activities and we think about the marching band and the show choir and the football game and those things that really capture our attention. But we have a lot of activities that students participate in. Lynette talked about the chess club that kids do participate in both before school and after school. So we certainly want to keep those opportunities available for students and hopefully create more opportunities by having more high schools, or more schools, period, at every level. So that's a point well taken.
Okay, and I think my concern is that right now I'm 1.6 miles from Memorial, which is within walking distance. But if I had to go to George McGovern, I wouldn't be able to offer those activities to my children.
Right. I got your point there.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
We're not showing any other questions or comments on the line, but if you would like to make a comment or question, please press star 1 on your telephone keypad. Again, that is star 1 on your telephone keypad.
I'll give you just a brief update while we're waiting for a call to come in. A question came up last week on how are you doing on the construction of Ben Rifle Middle School and of Thomas Jefferson High School, and has COVID-19 impacted that construction process? I'm happy to tell you that COVID-19, at least to date, has not interrupted that process. Our contractors have kept their staffs in place. And there are two key terms that I love to talk about when I talk about those two projects. One is that both of them are on budget. We've still got a long way to go, but they're on budget, and both of those projects are on time. So those are two critical indicators as we get closer and closer to August of 2021 on being able to open up those buildings for the kids in our community. And as of today, that looks good. Jeff Kreider and his crew in operational services have worked very closely with the hundreds of people involved in bringing those construction sites to the point where they are today and to the point where they need to be in about another year and a half. So, so far, so good.
We do have a question or comment on the line from Shane Bonham.
Hello, Shane.
Hi, how are you doing?
Good.
I guess one of my concerns, I am a parent who's had 3 children go through the school system. Already 2 graduated from Sioux Falls School District. One will be a senior this year, and we have one entering the 3rd grade in the Oscar Howe School District. All of our kids have gone through Oscar Howe. We actually moved back into the neighborhood, so our son could kind of follow the footprint that our other children did and had great success with, which was Oscar Howe, Memorial, and then Roosevelt. My question was, Mr. Morrison has stated that the goal is to keep as many elementary students together as they transition into middle school. From what I've heard, that still holds true, and if that's the case, option A, that appears that doesn't split very many schools. Pretty much moves JFK to Edison. We put Oscar Howe, Discovery, and Pettigrew at Memorial. Those are the ones that I was kind of more concerned about, whereas option B seems to be the only option that indicates that the school would be split. Ironically, we live on Valley View. My son has one of his very good friends that lives straight across the street. So as he goes through middle school or elementary school, playing the sports that he does with all of his friends, he'll be split by the middle of the road. I don't really know why there would need to be an option B if the option A completes the goal that Mr. Morrison had spoke about giving the least amount of impact on the students.
Good point, Shane. The first thing I would say is when we do the boundaries, there's always going to be this side of the street versus that side of the street. Unfortunately, it sounds like you're on one of those boundary lines in one of the scenarios. In regards to the splitting,
in the pocket.
In regards to the splitting of schools, I've got Mr. Morrison here. I'm going to let him take that and address your issue.
Okay.
Good evening, Shane. So on the west side, as you know, it's very complex to sort of split up. When you think about Memorial, I tend to look at it in 4 different quadrants. So there's the Discovery area, which is a walk area, and so that would be very hard to move any of that. And then you get down the southern part, you get to Pettigrew area, right? And so that would be hard you could move part of that up to McGovern, and that was an option we looked at early on that the boundary committee wasn't necessarily in complete favor of bringing forward to the community. And so then we do have an option where we move all of JFK to Edison, and then you're left with the Oscar Howe area as another option to move some kids out of the Memorial area to ease the overcrowding. And so when we looked at Oscar Howe, we divided it into 2 separate areas. What is now termed as the walk area, which kids are currently in a walk area to Memorial. And then there's a non-walk area. And so we took the non-walk area that is bus Memorial today, and we said, take this population and this option and move it from bus it to McGovern instead of Memorial, since that's a bus area already. We've also heard a lot about radius. I'm in a certain distance of Memorial. When we look at that scenario, if I took 2-mile radius of Memorial, that's 1,500 kids. And when you draw a straight 2-mile radius, you leave out part of Pettigrew, you leave out part of JFK, you leave out part of Oscar Howe, and you bring in part of Hayward into Memorial. So you can't really use a radius either, and then you're splitting up more schools. So long story short, it's unfortunate that we have some schools out there that we're looking at least bringing options to the community at how to alleviate some of the overcrowding in Memorial. And in option B, taking the busing area of Oscar Howe and moving up to McGovern was one option that we're putting out for comment. I don't know if that's an option the board will, at the end of the day, or if there'll be some other variation, but we're trying to look at some different options and put them on the table at least for comment. So I certainly understand your concern. We've heard that from more than just yourself, and we appreciate that. But we're sort of, you know, a little bit, it gets a little complex when you're trying to divide the west side, but I understand your concern. And as Dr. Maher said, unfortunately, somebody's always on the line, and we try to look at that and appreciate your feedback, and we've heard from others as well. And your feedback will be brought to the board as a concern with that pocket. And we'll take all those things into consideration when they make their final deliberation and ultimately arriving at the final boundaries.
Okay, so real quick, as a follow-up to your explanation on the non-walking students then would be bused. So my son's friend, our neighbor who lives across the street, they're going to be required to walk to Memorial?
I would say they're probably in a walk area today. Doesn't mean that
they live right directly across the street from me.
Okay.
Which isn't a busing area right now, based on what we had before. The bus actually comes down and stops at the end of the corner of our block.
Sure. Well, we'll definitely look at that area. So, I mean, that's the reason we're taking feedback, right? So we can look at specific areas or whatever. The intention was to move the non-walk area. That was the idea of developing that pocket. So we'll take another look at that.
And then real quick, back to the statement that you had indicated, and it's been out several times, of you want to put the least amount of impact on splitting up or transition schools when they're transitioning in the middle school. Option A is technically that best option, correct? When you say that you don't want to split up anyone, or you want to leave the least amount of impact on splitting people.
Yeah, we would prefer to live, you know, we have some schools that are split today. It's unavoidable, and we'll have some that are split in these final boundaries. That's just the way, when you look at all the students geographically, we try to keep as many cohorts together as we can, but it's not always possible because you end up with, you know, schools that have too many and then schools with not enough. So you have to make some of those hard decisions. But I think we've done a pretty good job at limiting those as best we can. It's always a guiding principle that we looked at, but sometimes unavoidable.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
We have another question or comment from Janet Sarpy.
Hello, Janet.
Hi. Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, I'm a mother of 5 from Sioux Falls School District. I'm kind of concerned, but I think somebody asked the question earlier, but I'm kind of concerned of my kids working. You know, I'm kind of like, I think like 10 to 15 minutes a week if it comes to walking for my kids. And I work sometime in the morning. So I don't have anybody home to drive them to school. So for that, I always come to work late because I have to drive my kids to school before I leave. And I have 2 boys that are in middle school. They on our age, they cannot babysit the other kids or walk into school as well because it's kind of dangerous because there's more stop sign. Car going in and out, so I'm kind of afraid. I don't have no, I'm kind of afraid for my kids. So I was thinking that if you guys can, provide more transportation for those kids that walk to school, I think that would be more better for the safety of the kids. Instead of kids walking all the time, especially winter time, in the cold and stuff like that. So that's my concern.
Janet, let me see if I got this right. You have five kids. 2 of them are in middle schools. and you need to drop them off before you go to work. Do I have that right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
your
I always go to work late.
and your concern is that you would like us to have more transportation so that they wouldn't
Yes.
have to walk, because you're
Yes.
concerned about them walking, particularly in bad weather.
Yes, and the car, stop sign because they have to pass 2 stop signs. I had like 2 stop signs, 2 different stop signs before my kids reach the school. They go to Cleveland Elementary School. Those 3 kids.
Walking across some busy streets to get to school.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, our goal certainly isn't to provide less transportation. That will not be our goal. Our goal will be to provide at least the amount of transportation that we have today. And I don't know that I'm answering your question, but your concern of safety for students who are driving and for working families to be able to drop students off or to have safe walking paths to school. I think I'm getting the gist of your comment. That's important to us as well.
Yeah, because it's really, it's a problem for that,
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Do you have other comments?
No.
Well, thank you for calling in.
All right.
Next question, Audra?
We have no other questions on the line at this time.
We don't have any other questions right now. While we're waiting for the next question, I will say I found out when Mr. Morrison was speaking that we have 143 people who are watching us on live stream, and I don't have any way of knowing how many people are looking on KLearn, so I think that's very good. And if I was in an auditorium at one of our middle schools, I would know how many people are there, and I think that number is a good number. So we're getting good feedback, at least from a listening audience. So thank you for being with us tonight. I will talk briefly about the principals that we will have in our new buildings. But prior to that, I want to give you the number one more time. The number to call in is 1-800-874-4559. 1-800-874-4559. At our 2 new buildings, Ben Rifle Middle School and Thomas Jefferson High School, obviously we'll have the first principals of those buildings, and those were named fairly recently by the school district. At Ben Rifle Middle School, the principal will be Shane Hieronymus. Those of you who have students who have gone or go to Edison Middle School, you know that Shane is currently the middle school principal at Edison. He will be the principal at Edison Middle School again next year. And the following year, when we open up Ben Rifle Middle School, Mr. Hieronymus will move to Ben Rifle as the principal that year. At Thomas Jefferson High School, Mr. Dan Conrad, currently finishing the year as principal at Washington High School, will be the principal at Thomas Jefferson High School. Mr. Conrad leaves after 4 years as principal at Washington and several years as assistant principal at Washington before that. We're certain that both Mr. Hieronymus and Mr. Conrad will do an outstanding job. Mr. Conrad will be vacating his position at Washington this year, and taking over as Washington High School principal this coming year will be Carrie Papke. Mrs. Papke was a teacher and a department chair just a year ago at Washington, and then this past year she went to Lincoln High School as an assistant principal there for just this 1 year. So that will be how we begin the process of having new principals at our new schools. in addition to the principals, obviously we need to populate those buildings with teachers and coaches. That process is in its infancy, as the principals were just named. We'll begin now and through this next year staffing those positions with teachers, with coaches, with activity sponsors, and all of that is just in the beginning stages of happening. So it'll be an exciting time for the district, and certainly an exciting time for those two brand new schools.
We have a question or comment on the line from Heather Schmidt.
Hello, Heather.
Hello, sir. Thank you for taking my call. First of all, I just want to say thank you for everything that you're doing. I know that this isn't an easy topic for anybody to have to deal with, so I appreciate you taking the time to just listen to people's voices. I guess my question is that when this starts, I will have a daughter in as an 8th grader at Memorial, and then I will have a son who will be starting middle school as a 6th grader. I guess my question to you is, what are our options if, I guess right now we're kind of in favor of option B just because we are so close to Memorial at this particular point in the game. But what are our options for keeping my in Memorial as an 8th grader and not having to take my son to 2 different schools? I would have to take him to Edison if the option A passed, and that's twice as long. And for working parents traveling down 41st Street, across 41st Street with the construction that's going to be happening, I guess that's my main concern with option A. So I guess I would just like some feedback on that if I could.
Yeah, Heather, you bring up a really good point, and I addressed it a little bit at the very beginning, but not nearly as completely as I will, because your situation is probably not as unique as you might think. So let me tell you what I mean. When I think of just your 8th grade daughter, and Heather, did you say your daughter will be in 8th grade the year that we open up the new buildings?
Correct. Yep.
Yeah. So she'll be in the last grade of middle school that year. So on the one hand, one of the things I don't know yet is what will 8th graders be grandfathered into their buildings? And our Board of Education will decide that most likely in June. I know they're wondering and thinking about it now and listening, so thank you for calling in. But that decision will be made in June. And the decision will be, in your case, 2 parts. The first part, let's think just about your daughter. Your daughter's going to be an 8th grader. Will 8th graders be grandfathered at their current building? And I don't know the answer to that, but it's a good question. If I take that to the high school level, will seniors be grandfathered in high school if you're going to be a senior? And I would say that there's a chance, if you're at the top grade level, that you'll be grandfathered. But I don't know that, so please don't misinterpret what I'm saying. The second piece that our board will have to wrestle with is what we call the tag-along provision or the sibling provision. So in your case, if your 8th grader is grandfathered, that'll be great for your daughter. But if your son has to go to a middle school other than Memorial, it's a bit of a burden on the family and certainly not convenient. So the question is, number one, will we grandfather students? And number 2, will we provide a tag-along for siblings? And Heather, I got to tell you tonight, I don't know the answer to either one of those. But I want you to know that both the task force that we put together that has met 3 times and will meet again after these community engagement sessions have weighed in on that, and we'll give them an opportunity to weigh in again on that topic. And also, I have a student advisory group where we have students who represent all of the high schools in the district, and I asked them that question, and they weighed in on that. So our board will have that information before they make that final determination. It doesn't do you much good tonight other than to know our I know that decision will not be taken lightly by our Board of Education. I'll give you a little feedback when I met with the students, and these were freshmen, sophomores, juniors, and seniors from our 3 comprehensive high schools as well as New Tech High School, so our 4 high schools. And I asked them, should we grandfather students? And the students were pretty unanimous. I don't remember that they were exactly unanimous, but there was a strong sentiment that we should grandfather students. So then I asked them, should we grandfather seniors, students who are going to be seniors? And they were pretty unanimous again that seniors should be grandfathered. And then I asked them, what about juniors? And the room began to get a little more divided. And as we went down to freshmen and to sophomores, it became less and less certain that we should grandfather students. When we moved to the middle school, it wasn't unanimous, but there was a pretty good feeling that 8th graders should be grandfathered, but not 7th graders or 6th graders. Now, that doesn't mean our board will think along the same way as our student population did, but that's a little bit of the conversation I had with our students. I would tell you that my interpretation of the conversation that took place at the task force was very similar to that. Not the same, but very similar to that. So that's a long-winded way, Heather, of saying, I'm not sure what'll happen, but your 8th grade daughter has a better chance of being grandfathered than a 7th grader does. And the tag-along or the sibling provision, I really don't know. I know our board is mindful about convenience for families, which is why we allow open enrollment within the district in addition to the mandate from the state. But that's something that's yet to be determined. I know I didn't answer your question, but hopefully I gave you some things to think about.
I think that it's important, right, absolutely, and I just think that it's important that those things, as a parent, kind of are on, they're on the top of my mind, obviously, and I want them to be on the top of everybody's mind. I know that I'm not unique in this situation by any means, but again, trying to move an 8th grader out of a middle school would be a rough thing to do, and again, then having to add a 6th grader on top of that to get to the middle of town when we're on the far west side of town. Just things that I know that, again, I'm not unique by any means, but just wanted to say it out loud.
I hope I wasn't offensive when I said you weren't unique. I want you to know that there are others that have that same issue that you do. I think that helps.
Yeah,
I think that helps your case.
Right. Yes, absolutely. And I wasn't saying that to be spiteful by any means, but I just know that it's obviously on the top of my mind, and I'm sure other people's minds as well. So thank you again for your time and for listening to all of the voices.
Great point. I'm glad you brought it up.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Audrey, we're ready for the next question.
We have another question or comment from Virginia Colgan.
Yes, can you hear me?
I can. Welcome, Virginia.
Hello. So I want to say I think that it's great that you are considering grandfathering in families of 8th graders and seniors, because we want to make sure that no family is like having to split kids up. That would just be, it would not be beneficial. And then I like that you're considering that you're just moving people that are already in busing routes. I think that's just fair. My concern, well, first I also want to say that several years ago, my own children, when Memorial was built, to deal with this problem as well, where some of their friends were going to go to Memorial, and then some of them had to go to Axtell, and it was gut-wrenching. It was painful then, but we survived and we made do. Open enrollment at the time really affected some families. Those that had the means to open enroll went to Memorial, and those that did not went to Axtell, which further separated that socioeconomic divide between the two schools. But my concern right now is I live in the George McGovern district on the northwest side in a new subdivision that's right next to Tri-Valley. And I was looking at I think it was the district had some information about projected growth on the northwest side, but I'm concerned that most of that projected growth is business related and manufacturing related, and not necessarily residential, which wouldn't fairly impact the socioeconomic issue that George McGovern has right now. Can you explain further what data is used in that economic development?
You bet. Great question, and also some great advice on some historical perspective there. Virginia, when we look at determining the population trends, we bring in folks from the city of Sioux Falls, and we talk to them specifically about the development and the type of development. So while you're correct, and really in many quadrants of the community, we have commercial development going on. Certainly that'll happen in the northwest quadrant, but there's a good deal of residential development that will take place out in that area over time too. If you look at the area that we're roughly looking at right now as the George McGovern area, there's a good amount of land there, and a high amount of that land will be residential in its development. No doubt what you said is true, that there will be some commercial development as well. But when we look at the numbers, those aren't us guessing. Those are city planners telling us how those areas are set to be developed.
As a resident that lives over here, I see the most residential areas being developed right now going to Tri-Valley. So there's somebody that's projecting another neighborhood to just be developed with roads and sidewalks within how long of a time are we thinking?
Well, I don't know that. I don't know that it's a year or 2 or 5. I don't know the answer to that. But I do know that there was a lot of infrastructure that was put into that whole northwest quadrant during the entire last 5 years. So the development will take place, I'll say, in fairly short order, but I won't attach a time frame to that.
Well, then I would like to come out in support of option B, because that is just by living out here and walking around with my dog and my family and traveling. I see that Cherry Lake division, that's developed, roads, everything to go, and nothing else seems to be attached. So I guess I'm just coming out in support of option B.
Thank you. And I wouldn't dismiss the eyeball test. You getting out and walking your dog is important. You have a really good idea of what is being developed right now. And hopefully we can take that information and couple that with the prognosis that we get from the city and come up with a good plan. But, thank you for your...
Any sort of plan? I'm sorry, one more question. Is there any sort of plan that Tri-Valley, like, do we know how many open enroll from that Tri-Valley district to Roosevelt it would be right now? Or I guess they could really open enroll anywhere. Like, do we know the numbers?
We do. We know what our net option enrollment is with Tri-Valley. I don't know what that is off the top of my head, but I know we are a net positive in terms of that option enrollment.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir.
You're welcome. Thanks for calling in. Audra, we're ready for the next question.
We have no other questions on the line at this time.
Okay. Got some good questions tonight. Actually, it's a different twist on some topics that we've actually already wrestled with. I did take my graduation speech today for the virtual graduation. Maybe I could try to recite that for you. For those of you watching at home, you should know that there are 6 people with me in the room. I'm getting 6 emphatic no's on that, so I won't do that.
If you join late and you do have a question or comment, please press star 1 on your telephone keypad. Again, that is star 1 on your telephone keypad.
just as a reminder, we'll do this again Thursday at noon and next Monday night at 7 o'clock.
Oh, sorry, we have a question from Carmen Stever. Her line was accessed. Sorry, one moment.
Hello, how are you this evening?
I'm doing good. Is this Carmen?
This is Carmen. My question is, I guess I'm really concerned about the pockets that we're discussing here. I'm wondering if the school board is truly taking this into consideration. These pockets are an accessible walking route to school, and it appears that a whole lot of consideration isn't being taken into this to keep the students that are within walking distance in their community and allowed to attend those schools.
Yeah, but I appreciate your comment, Carmen. I'm afraid that anything I would say would sound defensive, so I certainly don't want to do that. But we're taking every comment seriously, and I think our board hasn't had a chance to weigh in on it yet. That's why I would say that it would be unfair to characterize them as not taking the comment serious. So I'm sure that they will take the comment serious. The other thing that I would refer to is the comments that I made at the very beginning, in that it's hard to take everything in totality and look at the entire map of the school district and to have it make sense when I look at all of the micro issues that go on within that macro look at the district. And so certainly we're taking a look at all of the pockets. Shane called in earlier with some really good points on, contiguous neighborhoods and keeping them together, and that's something we want to do as well. But safe walking routes is something that we definitely consider. Populations we have to consider, and really all of the comments that we've had tonight we will continue to consider. So, Carmen, we appreciate your call.
All right, thank you very much. Just I hope that you all take that into consideration.
We will indeed. Thank you.
We have no other questions on the line, but if you do have a question or comment, please press *1 on your telephone keypad.
I think we'll go 1 or 2 minutes here, and we'll wrap it up for the night. I'm not checking texts. I'm just checking time. I've got 6:58 here, so if we get another call, we'll take it. If not, a reminder for Thursday at noon, we'll do this again. And next Monday night at 7 p.m., we'll wrap up the community engagement portion. Again, I said earlier, I know we had, when I checked earlier, 143 people who were on the live stream, and many more, I'm sure, on K-Learn. I'm guessing thousands. It's my weak attempt at humor right there. Audrey, do we have anybody else in the queue?
There's no one else on the line at this time.
Okay. I'm going to say thank you to Sioux Falls, to the community. I really appreciate you being with us here tonight. And again, Thursday at noon, next Monday at 7. If you haven't had a chance to call in your question or comment, please do so then. And until then, have a great night. Thank you, Audrey.
Thank you. Have a good night.